Many CHEP employees work with hazardous materials every day. Identifying and regulating these materials is no easy task. In the U.S. alone, there are an estimated 650,000 products that can be identified as hazardous. The Hazard Communication Procedure ensures that our employees know the hazards of any materials they may have to work with and how to protect themselves from any dangers they may present. In this course, you will learn about things like identifying hazardous materials, assessing risks, as well as labeling, storage, and emergency procedures. Before we get started, let's look at some roles and responsibilities, as well as some examples of substances with the capacity to cause harm to an employee. Now, let's get familiar with definitions you should know. Using chemicals or other hazardous substances at work can put people's health at risk. Some conditions resulting from improper handling of such substances include respiratory disease, cancer, and skin diseases like dermatitis or ulcers. For this reason, it is important that our employees receive proper training around the hazard communication procedure. All substances that were listed in the previous section or containing a GHS label like the one displayed on your screen shall be reviewed for storage and handling. Any newly introduced material should be reviewed through the COSHH risk assessment, which can be found in the Hazard Communication Procedure. Beneath the risk assessment template, in the Hazard Communication Procedure, there is also a link to a set of instructions, which will help you conduct the risk assessment. Any substances identified that are no longer used should be disposed of as special waste. Any employee who may be affected by the use of a specific substance should be trained in its use, protection, and disposal of the substance. In addition, all employees must be trained on hazard communication on an annual basis. All identified hazardous substances that are to be kept available for use should be subject to a suitable and sufficient risk assessment to establish the hazards, risks, and the people who could be affected. The risk assessment should be done in conjunction with a safety data sheet and is required to be carried out initially when a substance is first introduced at the site. These assessments shall be reviewed annually, or if any significant change is made. As mentioned previously, the COSHH risk assessment template, as well as a set of instructions, can be found in the Hazard Communication Procedure. During the risk assessment, the following hierarchy of control measures should be used. A material that is considered hazardous in the U.S. may not be considered hazardous in another country, and vice versa. To combat any confusion, OSHA has adopted the Globally Harmonized System for Classification and Labeling, or GHS. The GHS is a set of universal recommendations developed by the United Nations. The primary goal of the GHS is to increase the quality and consistency of information provided to all employees by adopting a standardized approach. The GHS has already been adopted by places like China, Australia, Europe, Canada, and Brazil. Let's take a look at some of the changes resulting from the adoption of the GHS. New Hazard Classification System. Standardized labels. Labels are now required to display 6 key identifiers. Safety data sheets. Safety data sheets will now follow a 16-section format, including the following information. Now, let's look at an example GHS label. A registry of all chemicals on site should be kept and updated on an annual basis. You can find a template for this registry in the Hazard Communication Procedure. An authorized user is an appropriate, competent person nominated by the site manager authorized to use the hazardous substance in question. No employee should use any hazardous substance unless approved by site management. Management should review the list of authorized users annually. All authorized personnel shall adhere to company policy as well as manufacturer's instructions at all times while working with hazardous substances. Suitable, secure storage facilities should be provided and maintained for all hazardous substances. Storage should be able to contain any spillages in a secondary container when substance is needed in large bulk. An emergency procedure should be produced and communicated to all affected personnel. Any authorized user should be trained on this procedure. Emergency procedures should cover the following. At minimum, a copy of the emergency procedure should be kept in the Service Center library. If possible, additional copies should be kept at the location that the substance is used, as well as the storage area. Chemicals introduce many different hazards into the workplace. By completing this course, you should now be able to recognize hazards, be familiar with the globally harmonized system and safety data sheets, and understand the CHEP hazard communication procedure.